We've all heard that we need mentors, and mentors are the secret sauce to propelling our growth. And it's true. But at the same time, mentors can also not give us the best advice in the world. And we can't put all of our eggs in one basket. We can't sit here and listen and think that our mentors are going to guide us and bring us to exactly where we want to be and put all the responsibility on them. You have to be able to build your own internal guidance on what's right for you, what you want, and stop giving your personal power away to mentors. And that's what this episode is all about. I've seen it more and more over the years where people give almost all of their personal power to their mentors, where they get to a point where they're not running their business, their lives, or anything by what they actually want, but more of what they think they should be doing. And this episode is to bring you down a little mini journey of discovering, are you giving your mentors too much of your personal power? Are you stepping into your own internal guidance? Because my biggest belief is that your biggest mentor is your internal guidance. So if that sounds interesting to you, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a concept that changed my life. It's what we like to talk about here on the podcast, how to think about that for a second, how I wanted to phrase that. And I kind of want to tread lightly with this topic, but it is something that has come up this week as I do more and more sales calls, as I talk to more and more people. And this is about mentors. And this is about my lessons with mentors. This is about my journey with mentors. This is about lessons I've learned with mentors. And I think you probably have heard and understand that, like, we all need mentors, right? It's hard to get through this world without having mentors, without having guides, without having someone that we can learn from. And mentors and guides can come from all different angles, help you in different areas of your life. They can be different ages. It doesn't matter. Like, sometimes some of my biggest mentors and teachers are actually my kids, right? And I've also had amazing mentors over the years, like James Wedmore and Jim Fortin and a bunch of other people, but those are the two main ones that come to mind. And the point I'm making is that we all know that we need mentors and we need those guides. And so a lot of you guys also know that I work with a shaman who has been a really great mentor for me in the personal development and growth and expansion area of my life. I've also had mentors like Fiona, who you've heard me talk about on the podcast from time to time, who has helped me navigate different things like relationships and ways of looking at life. And there's just a lot. And there could be mentors that you don't even have never met. Like, these could be authors or influencers or content creators or speakers or whatever it may be. But there is something that happens from time to time that I see a lot of people kind of fall into this trap, where they put the responsibility of what they want to create on their mentor's shoulders. And I see this all the time in the course creator space, where people like think a course or a program owes it to them to get them results. And they put so much of the responsibility, like honestly, things that they should be responsible for, on the shoulders of their mentors. And it's not your mentor's job to make sure that you're successful. It's your job to make sure that you're successful. And it's the same thing where it's like, it's not my mentor's job to make sure my business is running. And it's not my mentor's job to make sure that I can find internal peace. It's their job to guide and give the expertise that they have. And I think a lot of the times what people do is they give their own personal power to their mentors. I see people do it with me all the time. I've done it to my own mentors. And actually, sometimes having good mentors almost is a disservice, because I remember one time thinking like, man, if I can't make it in the business world and I have James and Jim as mentors, like, what does that say about me? And those were things that I had to get over. And then I started to do anything and everything that they would recommend. Like, I'm just going to listen to my mentors. And I think that's good advice, especially in the beginning, is like, if you're going to bring on mentors, bring on a guide, then like, yeah, you're probably going to want to listen to them. But there becomes a point where it becomes too much. And when I say too much, meaning that you give them too much power over the decisions and the things that go on inside of your life. And then before you know it, you're running your business, your life, your growth based off of someone else's advice and experience, and you lose touch to your own internal guidance. And I think mentors and stuff are great, but they need all that information and all the things that you're learning from them. It needs to be run through your own internal guidance. Because the one thing, the one person, the one area, stream of consciousness, stream of energy, connection to God, whatever you want to call it, that connection, the knowing of your dharma and your purpose and what feels right to you and what doesn't feel right to you, or even your own life choices and decisions, whatever that feels right to you. And the more you practice your own internal guidance, the more you're going to know what's best for you. Because your mentors aren't going to know that. Your mentors aren't going to know like why you're here on this planet. They're not going to know what feels good to you. They're not going to want to know your wants and desires. They're not going to know what's going to work best for you or your lifestyle or what's going on in your life. You have to know that. And so it's your job to take all of this stuff into consideration. And, you know, like working with a shaman who's been able to help me navigate so many different areas of my life and things going on in my life and really help propel my own growth and evolution and expansion and consciousness, ways of thinking, just growth. You know, it's easy to just be like, okay, this person said this, let's do that. This person said that, let's do this. And then you could, you know, even with having like a therapist or like when I worked with Fiona, there's a lot of times where people like will just trust the therapist or they'll just trust, like even with Fiona, just trusting, like, you know, I would put a lot of trust into her and I still do. I put a trust in all of my mentors still. But the point that I'm making is that it can't be blind trust. It can't be this blind trust if I'm just going to do what they say all the time, even if it doesn't feel right to you. And I see this happen with therapists a lot too. And you guys have to understand, like, therapists are just like doctors. Not every single therapist is good. Not every single doctor is good. Not every single person is going to give you the advice that is perfect for you in the moment. Whether it be a shaman or a priest or a therapist or a doctor or a preacher or whatever, none of them are going to be able to know what is best for you. And when someone is speaking to wide ranges of people, groups of people, how can you give personalized individual advice? And even if you still don't know what's going to be best for that person. And so when I coach people and I work with people, like, I'm very careful not to give them direct advice and to really guide them on figuring out what's going to be best for them. And I think that's the thing that happens, is that a lot of people start to give too much of their trust to mentors. And what starts to happen, not trust, but decisions. Too many of decisions made are based on what their mentors tell them, without running it through their own internal system, without running it through their own internal compass. And what's happening in those moments is you're giving too much of your own personal power to somebody else, whether it be a priest, a preacher, a shaman, a therapist, a doctor. There's so many times where people don't question anything and they just blindly follow advice from someone who does have the experience that they have. And again, you need to do that, right? There's no avoiding it. You need to be able to have mentors and the guides and those sorts of people, but it has to be run through your own internal guidance, because if you don't, there's gonna be times where you're like, that didn't work for me. That actually brought me to a worse spot. It's like, yeah, because the situation was different. And, you know, like when I do have mentors like Jim and James and other business people that also don't have kids or a family, like the business advice that they get may not be 100% relevant to me and what I'm going through, or what my daily life doesn't look like theirs. So I can't possibly be running blindly taking their advice, because it's going to disrupt my life. And even again, when it comes to these people that we really trust, when it comes to beliefs and faith, again, like religious leaders or shamans or, whatever it may be, someone you're learning from in a personal development world, a spiritual world, religion world, there's going to be times where like even the philosophy of whatever they're teaching may not land with you. And it's okay to question that. It's okay to go like say what feels good to you and what doesn't, and what's right for you and what isn't. And because if we don't do that, then we are running our lives basically controlled by our mentors. And the thing that was designed to help us, the thing that we were trying to learn from, the people that were trying to learn from, the philosophies we're trying to learn from, actually start to control what our life looks like. And it's a complete loss of personal power because now you're living everything else through someone else's lens, someone else's reality, someone else's advice, someone else's something, when what should be like, or at least my thoughts on it should be that we have to decide what it is that we want in our life, what our life to look like. Find the mentors that can help us do that. Take the advice as just that, advice, not truth. And then we can discover our own truth using their advice, using their perspective, using their guidance and their insight, because they do have insight that we may not have. And then allow that to help us craft the best decisions that are for us. And the more that you start to use your own internal guidance, the more you start to get in tune with what feels good, the stronger that skill gets. And some of the things that I've learned, because a lot of people will be like, well, how do I know it's like, this is my truth and this is my guidance? How do I get started with that? Well, the first and foremost, I will tell you that like the truth and where you should be going and what in that direction is excitement. Like what actually gets you excited. So if your advice that you get from your mentors is something that doesn't sound exciting, sounds like I don't really want to do that, I don't like to look at, that's the first indicator that like, maybe that advice is not for you. Maybe there's something for you to explore and get clear on what you actually want. The second thing I've noticed is that when it's your own voice, your own truth, your own dharma, purpose, whatever you want to call it, there usually is not fear attached to it. Again, it's pure excitement. So if you start to realize that you're making decisions because you're like, oh, my mentor gave me this advice and like, I don't want to do that because it's scary, that's fear. That doesn't mean that we don't do it, right? You don't sit there and say, well, that's scary. My internal guidance is telling me not to do that. It's like, well, maybe your internal guidance is telling you to follow the advice from your mentor, and maybe it is scary. And so what I found is that when I'm trying to decide, does this advice fit where I want to go? Part of that is, and I decide no to that. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm deciding, am I saying no because it's scary, or am I saying no because it just doesn't sit right with where I go or want to go? And there is a big difference there. So when we start to listen to mentors and guides, and you're going to use like, well, Brandon said this is my own, I need to follow my own internal guidance and I don't want to go that way because it's scary. It's like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying maybe you should go that way. You have to sit there internally, removing the emotion, removing the fear, removing all of that stuff and getting in tune with, does this direction, if it works out, excite me? Does it light me up? Is this where I want to go? Is this where I want to be? Is this who I want to be with? Is this who I want to be around? Is this where I want to live? Is this what I want to teach? Is this what I want my life to look like? Is this what I want my experience to be? These are the types of questions that we have to ask so that you can make your own decisions, step into your power, and move into alignment. Because when you do that, that's when results are massive. And I remember one time working with a student, Beverly, who also became a coach for a lot of years for us. We were working on her messaging and she was moving in one direction. And I'm like, I don't know why this isn't working. Like the messaging is on fire. And I was using the best I could, or I was doing the best I could with what I had as far as information. Like she said, this is the direction she wants to go. This is what's like what she's been selling, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, great. With these sort of constraints, with these sort of variables, here's the advice that I would give. But there was something that was missing, an invisible thing that was missing, because it still wasn't working and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, I don't know. Like, the messaging is on point. You did all the right things. This is really good messaging, and it wasn't working. And then she decided, I think I need to move the niche a little bit. So she moved the niche slightly, a different target market, and moved into more of an alignment of where she wanted to be, what really excited her. So she had to pay attention. Even though I was giving her this advice, she had to move into what her own internal guidance was telling her. And I can't remember the timeline. I think it was like within 6 months, she was like at $100 or $200,000 a year. Just like massive shift, just boom, one little twist, one little direction, and then boom, just takes off, because that's where she needed to be. That was her dharma. That was her purpose. That was the direction she needed to head in order for the results to be there. And I couldn't see that as the mentor. I couldn't see that because I will never know that for her or for anyone else other than myself. And so I think even if you're going to be a mentor, you have to also understand and recognize that, like, sometimes the advice that you give may not be right for that person, but it's up to the person to be able to tell you that. But also as a mentor, you have to be very aware that if the person's not listening to your advice because they're scared, that doesn't mean that is a automatic, hey, go follow your internal guidance. We might need to push a little bit. But ultimately, they need to decide on what's good for them. You need to decide on what's good for them. And when you don't, the minute you stop doing that, you start giving your personal power away to everyone. You have to be able to question everything, make your own decisions based on what feels good, feels right, feels like your path, that brings you excitement, without the fear of what if it doesn't work out, without the fear of this, without the fear of that, without any of this fear. Listen to that internal guidance and voice. And the more that you do it, the stronger that skill gets. So remember that. There's nothing wrong with listening to your own voice, living life the way that you want. In fact, that's what you need to be doing. You need to be questioning things and finding out and listening to that internal guidance, because there's nothing that will ever replace that. And again, I think just so many people give way too much of their personal power to people that they perceive know more than them, have better results than them, but we're all equal. No one's better than any other person on this planet. Some people might have different experiences and knowledge that they've gained that you haven't. Doesn't make them better than you. Doesn't make them more right in what's good for you and what you want your life to look like. I don't know what compelled me to talk about this on today's podcast, but I hope it was helpful. I hope that you guys can get in tune more with your own internal guidance. Listen to that voice and what feels good to you. Stop with the society norms. Stop molding to what you think is right, what you think is going to cause you to be less judged by other people. And let that internal voice get stronger and louder and guide you to where you need to be. And when I say listen to that voice, it means what brings you excitement? What brings you joy? What's going to bring you more happiness? What's going to bring you more growth? Those are the things that we need to look for. So if you enjoyed this episode, let me know. You can always leave me a review on iTunes. Love reading those reviews, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.